Hi, I'm your host, Anand J. Sukadia, and this is the Limitless One podcast. Join me on this journey as I interview the most inspirational souls who are tapping into their limitless blueprint on a mental, physical, and spiritual level to thrive in uncertain times. If you feel you are so much more than just this body, just this life, and want to tap into your limitless potential, you're in the right place. Here we go, starseeds. Did you ever have a fascination with ancient history and uncovering the mysteries of humanity when you were a kid? I certainly did, and my obsession only grew stronger into adulthood. Welcome to the Limitless One podcast. I am your host, Anand J. Sukadia. Today, we have a very special guest who has dedicated his entire life to unraveling the mysteries surrounding the Great Pyramids. Joining us is Larry Pahl, the esteemed director of the American Institute for Pyramid Research. Larry is an independent scholar who has made presentations at two of the American Research Center in Egypt ARCE annual conferences, one of the largest gatherings of Egyptologists in the world. In 2019, he presented his research on the trial passages, and in 2020, he presented about the meaning of some of the markings of the Giza Plateau to the east of the Great Pyramid. Larry will be leading his 15th tour to Egypt on his Ancient Mysteries of Egypt tour, October 17th to the 26th, 2023. His discoveries listed on his website include the discovery of a holy circle at Giza, which reveals the dimensions of planet Earth, the origin of the Fibonacci spiral, which goes through the center of the three large Giza pyramids, and the extension of the Orion correlation theory to all the stars of the constellation Orion, not just the belt stars. This discovery is chronicled in his book, written as a travelogue, Enoch, Egyptian New Orion Connection Hypothesis. The director at the American Institute for Pyramid Research, Larry Pahl. How are you, brother?
I'm doing good. Thanks for asking me.
Wonderful. I was introduced to you as you were one of the featured lecturers on a recent tour of Egypt that we went on with Robert Grant. And touring some of these ancient sites with you, I was able to pick your brain on so many incredible discoveries you've been making. And then since I've been following your content on YouTube and Instagram, and it's like a whirlwind of new information that's coming out. So first of all, it's a pleasure to have you on, and so good to be able to connect with you on the trip and also tonight.
Well, again, thanks for having me. And yes, it was a wonderful trip we were on, wasn't it? And boy, that just was a once in a lifetime thing,
Absolutely. So first, before we start, can you tell us a little bit about the Institute for Pyramid Research?
Well, it's gone through several iterations. It used to be called the American Institute of Pyramid Research. That's when it was incorporated in Illinois. When I moved to Tennessee, I set it up as a not-for-profit corporation, and then now it's the American Institute for Pyramid Research. And I set it up as a not-for-profit because, my real interest, even though I lead tours and stuff, is really doing research and trying to discover things. And so, it's not to get rich or make money. And so, we're a not-for-profit. But the initial setting up of the Institute was because a man named Adam Rutherford, who's written a 4-volume set called Pyramidology, a 4-volume set, he spent much of his life studying the Great Pyramid, and he's one of the ones whose people use for measurements. You usually go to Flinders Petrie, you look at his measurements, the Cole survey by the Egyptian government, you get numbers there. C. Piazzi Smith, the Astronomer Royal for Scotland, and Adam Rutherford, for instance, Peter Lemessier in the book The Great Pyramid Decoded, he uses the measurements of Rutherford. So Rutherford ran the Institute of Pyramidology in Harpenden, England. And that was before the internet. So he sent out newsletters and booklets and stuff, published books. And I was a follower of his. And then he died, and his son took over the Institute, and his son died tragically in a car accident. The wife wasn't interested. So I realized the world had lost this powerful institute. And I thought, well, I don't have the money to be a publishing house like he was and stuff. But that was at the infancy of the internet. And I thought, well, you know what? I can start a virtual institute, and that's what really so it was called American Institute of Pyramidology is how I started, because I was trying to keep a witness in the world like Rutherford had done. And so that was the infancy. That was decades ago. It was probably 40 years ago. So again, it's gone through several iterations, but now it's the American Institute for Pyramid Research. I've dropped that name pyramidology because it has such negative connotations. People use that word kind of pejoratively. Wikipedia, if it says pyramidology, it's always, pseudoscience. Of course, they consider all this pyramid work pseudoscience, but there's no reason to, give them more fuel for the fire.
Definitely. So big picture, what is the mission of your institute?
Well, the two things we do is I do research and I lead tours. Those are the main things. I've written some books, so those are available. I have a website, I have social media presence, but the main two things I do the research both virtually, just study things you can study right from Google Earth, right, read from books, right in your own study, but then also obviously directly in the field in Egypt. So number one, research, and then number two, sharing the research through tours and stuff. So I'd say those are the two main things. And I really love the research first. So I do the tours just kind of, to let other people enjoy this stuff, and also just to bring in a little money too.
Yeah, amazing. So I've been interested in ancient Egypt since I was a little kid, ever since I was exposed to it through certain TV shows and movies. But what got you interested in Egyptology?
Well, what really did was I was a student of prophecy, as a young man. I read all 1,000 of Nostradamus's prophecies, and I read Bible prophecy. I read anything that claimed to be prophecy. That just kind of fascinated me. The idea that you could know the future, or someone can know the future, clairvoyance, that kind of thing. And when someone told me that the Great Pyramid was a prophecy of sorts, that's what really got me. So it was first my interest in prophecy that got me into the Great Pyramid. So that's really the avenue. And I still think the legends that go along with Enoch, because I do think Enoch's connected to the Great Pyramid. The wisdom that Enoch had. I look at Enoch as an ancient sort of Robert Grant, Da Vinci, Einstein kind of polymath, and he was the one that had the advanced knowledge. And really, I think he's the father of metrology. And so, he got a lot of this stuff into the pyramid. And it was said, legends say that the Pillar of Enoch was going to accomplish two purposes. One was to house the science and the math and the astronomy of the ancients. And so I think a lot of people recognize the Great Pyramid does that. It's a repository of the science that we thought no one had until the Greeks and modern, 21st century atomic physics. But so that was the first purpose that was said that Enoch had for Enoch's pillar, which I think ultimately is fulfilled in the Great Pyramid. But the second purpose is as a warning of catastrophe to come, a prophetic warning, because of catastrophes in the ancient world, the flood and tsunamis, different things, and pole shifts, that would happen in the future. So I really do believe, and this is one of the things that motivates me more than anything else in what I study at Giza, is looking for the calendars or the prophetic indicators that are there. There's a lot of people that have given some hints. Gary Osborne's written a couple of books, the Giza Prophecy, and different people have said there's various clocks there. When we were with Robert, he talked about calendars in the Holy of Holies when we were in some of the temples we were in, and in the Khafre temple. So there's a lot of kind of smoke, but I still don't think I found what I'm sure is there in greater measure, and that is actual warnings about things to come. If you remember, Anand, one of the things that happened, I don't know if I should talk about this, but
Please
on
do.
that trip that kind of sent shockwaves through people was Robert named a date. And do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah, 2029, I believe. Was it?
I didn't say the date, but if you want to bring it up, okay. So
yeah.
that sent. I mean, I remember the next day when I came to both breakfast and lunch, wherever table I sat at, the question was, "What did you think? What did you think? What did you think?" Because, that kind of was like a bombshell. Somebody said a date, and Robert said the source of where he got this. And so, like one mother thought it was kind of bad for her teenage son to hear this because it might, take away his incentive to want to go to college and other things. And some people, thought, why do we got to get apocalyptic? And so, but my take on this, and that's why I don't mind mentioning this, is everybody on the planet should be thinking about the things that could happen in the economic world, the things that could happen in the the declining ozonosphere and the ecological collapses that are taking place. Everybody should have some kind of handle themselves on what they think about, what preppers get into. In other words, what kind of catastrophes could come? What things should I responsibly do to prepare for these things that could happen? So I didn't begrudge Robert for bringing this up. And as a matter of fact, I thought now he's bringing it up in a circle of people that kind of know each other and like each other and have the same kind of view. So now it can be an item of social, construct among us, to work it through, not just ourselves, because I think every one of us has the responsibility to have a responsible view for what things could come on the earth, what could happen. It's an individual responsibility everybody has to come to terms with, but also now you've got a collective group of people that can, help each other in working that through. And so, but the whole point of what I'm saying there is that's the second purpose for what Enoch's pillar was going to do. And again, I think the Great Pyramid does that. So Robert gave us a source for that date, but I think it's possible and likely that date will arise from revelations of understanding the calendars that are at Giza.
Yeah, absolutely. And so many different ancient cultures around the world, they're basically converging in their prophecies. And obviously, you don't have to believe in prophecies, but just looking around what's going on in the world, all of our constructs, all of our systems are breaking down. So whether you want to look at it as an apocalypse or you want to look at it as something needs to die in order for something to be reborn, there's so many different ways to describe it. But yeah, we are entering into a new age where things are going to change dramatically. I think on a spiritual level, on a physical level, in earth changes levels. There's so many different ways to view it. But at the end of the day, whatever date that is, I think it's really about how do I raise my consciousness today? Whatever time we have left on the earth, we're all going to go at some point, whether it's through an apocalyptic, catastrophe, or it's whether we die of old age. But like, how do we use that knowing that everything is temporary and going forward in life and living our best possible life and consciously? And how do we raise that consciousness to the rest of the people that we interact with?
Right. Yeah. So I do think that both, as you said, both dynamics are happening at once. We are in the age of Aquarius. We really are. There's this new age with all the new possibilities of spirituality and consciousness and positivity. But we're also, I can see we're in the beginning of a huge dark age too. I think a lot of the gains of the Enlightenment in terms of freedom of inquiry, freedom of thought, are being squashed in many ways by government edicts and by irrational mandates, and through a decline in the love of the freedoms that really, to me, were the flowering of the Enlightenment. We're really kind of scaling those back and entering a dark age. So both are happening at once. It's the age of Aquarius, but it's a new dark age, and so there's a schism there.
Of course, yeah. The stronger one side gets, that pendulum is going to swing to the other side. So it's that battle for which direction does humanity go, right? It's both have a lot of momentum and steam behind it.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. So obviously, looking at the dimensions of the pyramids, the mathematics, all the correlations to the planetary alignments, the sun, the moon, the stars, Orion's belt, all of these things you take into effect, and this is non-disputed. Why is there such a slow, I guess, progression of releasing information from the Egyptian government towards this stuff? And, if I had the keys to the pyramids, I mean, I would be spending millions of dollars trying to figure out what else these mysteries are. Why do you think there's such a holding back of information on their end?
That truly is a mystery. I usually don't go real far with people because some of the people that say what you're saying and what the antiquities Egyptian authorities are hiding is that there is this is the narrative that there's plainly a evidence of Atlantis or an advanced civilization on the plateau, and they don't want that to come out. They want the Egyptian narrative to come out, so they're hiding the evidence that's there. Now, that is wrong. That is a wrong narrative in this extent. The Egyptians do not think that I think Zahiwas or Mark Lehner, if they could find an Atlantean structure, they would reveal it because they like fame. It would be a discovery. And they'd say, look what we found. Look what was here before our Egyptian fathers built this, this structure. So I don't think they're hiding that. I don't think that they know that there's an Atlantis record there, and they better make sure people don't find it. I really think they don't think that Atlantis thing is there. So I don't buy into that thing that they're hiding that. I think that's wrong. But they are plainly very slow about releasing information, and they have discovered some things that they have not let known. But to put that in the best light, I would do the same thing. If I was working on a discovery, I wouldn't make it public till I had vetted it and gone through it. And in that sense, sometimes it's appropriate for researchers to kind of hang on to information until they vetted it more. So, because Waziri, Dr. Waziri, the head of the Supreme Council of Antiquities, has announced that the Great Pyramid will be closed in June, and they haven't said when it's going to be reopened. And of course, the reason he gave for the closing of the Great Pyramid, which is a sad thing, because if people have trips planned for that time, whatever you do in Egypt, you want to go inside the Great Pyramid. Well, they're not going to be able to because it's closed. And the reason they gave is for renovations. Well, renovations.
It's been around for thousands of years.
What's to renovate? It's everything there is, back from, thousands and thousands of years ago. So really what I think they're going to do is, and so let me get out this narrative. So they had the press conference in March, obviously, about the new chamber that had been found. But of course, that new chamber was not found. It was 2017 when the Scan Pyramids team discovered that chamber. So it was 2017. Well, what was the press conference for? Well, when I was there in the previous October 2022, I was told by authorities, and it was, to keep it quiet, but that Scan Pyramids had discovered a new chamber higher up in the pyramid, and they were going to be announcing it in about 10 days. That's what I was told. And there was equipment up there in the original entrance that they were taking down just at that time. So I was told they're going to make an announcement in 10 days. Well, they never did. They never made the announcement about the chamber that they discovered up there, which, again, I was told by people in antiquities, but, keep it quiet. So when I back there now with Robert in March and my own February and March, my own tour and Robert's tour, they announced that there was going to be this press conference. I thought, oh, good, they're going to announce the upper chambers that they found. No, they didn't announce that. What they did was they talked about a chamber that they discovered in 2017. What made it newsworthy was they had actually taken a picture of it. Well, what they kind of hid was, shame on them. They could have taken that picture back in 2017. They didn't do any drilling for that endoscopic camera that went in there. The hole was already there. They could have put it in 2017. They could have put it in 30 years ago. They could have put that where they ended up putting it through up in the chevrons. There was no need to drill or anything. So that tells me that there's still a chamber up high that they've not announced, that Antiquities knows about, and that the Scan Pyramid team found that was supposed to be announced in October. I thought would be announced in March, but wasn't. Just something from 2017 was announced. And so now they're closing the pyramid in June for renovations. So I think they're really going to get serious now. And this is sort of a counter narrative what you're saying. Now, why are they hiding things? Well, look, they're fine. Like you said, if you had the keys, you would do this. They're doing now, it seems like to me, what you said you would do. But if you did do that, you wouldn't tell everybody. I think you'd first do it. You'd try and find, and then when you found something, then you'd show everybody. So I think that they're probably looking for the least intrusive, because I know for a fact that when the Scan Pyramids team came back in, because everybody said, well, 2017, when are we going to get some new information from them? When are we going to get some new information? Because again, the big revelation in 2023 was something they discovered in 2017. Well, I know for a fact that quietly the Egyptian government had brought the Scan Pyramids team back in there in 2021 to try and find the least intrusive means to get at the big void. We got at the little void now through that endoscopic camera, for which there was no need to drill. But they were up in the relieving chambers above the king's chamber, trying to figure out the least intrusive means. And so I think that's what's going to continue in June. And so I don't think we're going to know when it's going to be reopened, but hopefully they're going to try and get into, the large chamber and maybe some of the one that they didn't announce, because again, the big void's been announced since 2017. So there's the big void and that other chamber that they found, which could be the throat chakra, chamber. And so I think we need to be patient, give them the benefit of the doubt, and see after the period of closing of the Great Pyramid and doing this research if they reveal to us. Because just like with the air shafts, they hired first Gattenbrink to the German engineer to design the robots to go up into those things. And, they were real slow about trying to see what was behind the door. And then they did a bunch of things without telling people. And then finally the footage came out later through Ancient Architects, the channel, footage that had been held on by a Hollywood producer for a long time.
You're talking about the
So
Jedi Project, right?
yeah, that was the next one, the Jedi. So the point is that's what can lead to, the question that you asked that started this little part of our discussion is why do they do that? Why didn't they say we're actively pursuing these air shafts? There's something mysterious. There's a door back there. What is it? We want to find out. Here's what, because the first time Zahiwas did do that, they had that National Geographic special, and you saw the camera live drill the hole. The whole world saw it. It was one of the biggest audiences. That was wonderful. That's wonderful when they did that. But then they somehow reverted to the old thing, and then they were pursuing those air shafts without telling anybody what they were doing. So yeah, it's kind of mysterious the way they do things. But I do think this closing of the Great Pyramid now in June, I think there's some younger people in antiquities. There's a greater openness, and let's hope for the best.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember, I think it was like 2010. I heard about it through that show, Ancient Aliens, that they were doing the Jedi Project. So I saw like a a video of this, this robot going up, drilled through, got to past the first door, and then they started seeing some like ancient writing on the floor, like really small writing, and waiting to hear about what happens after that, because there was another door on the other side of that cavity, but like nothing came out of it. So it's like all these little teases, and then it kind of just like fizzles down. So I really hope that there's some kind of, some storyline where we can follow up on this. And there's not a lot of pressure from anyone, because the ancient Egyptian, the antiquities department, they kind of run everything, and there's nobody behind them trying to push them forward and trying to get these things out. It's like their own timeline.
And they suffer from the same thing that every, Thomas Kuhn, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, every discipline, sociology, anthropology, political science, they all suffer from, the science doesn't advance by, discovery and new discovery, rationality. There's power, there's control. Those operate in all disciplines, and they certainly operate, in antiquities. And a case in point, the second Sphinx. Okay, you remember that we had, I won't mention his name, but he talked to us at the Sphinx, Robert's group, and someone asked him about the second Sphinx, and he said, well, there was a person that believed that that one of the structures there near Kenkawis was the second Sphinx, but he disagreed with him. He respected his view, but he disagreed with him. Well, they didn't really respect his view, because I know that man, and he was basically let go by Antiquities. He had published some stuff about the second Sphinx in a Polish journal. They let him do that, but then he was on national TV, Egyptian TV. Someone asked him about it, and he said that's the second Sphinx. And so on national TV, he said it. They removed him from his position. He'd been in Antiquities for 30 years. So if you really respect the man, you don't fire him. You say, you know what, we don't think it's the second Sphinx, but this man does. So why you have to, and it's not just, but I don't mean to slam antiquities. Again, I think all disciplines operate that way. There's a certain, holding of power, and, Thomas Kuhn's The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, they don't advance, through rational, there's paradigm changes, and there's power motivations. And so, antiquities is just another, human organization that's subject to those kind of, sometimes irrational decisions.
Yeah. So what do you think, if you had to make a guess, what do you think is yet to be discovered inside the pyramids and also on the Giza Plateau? Like, what is inside these voids? I know that they're finding all different types of voids using even different technologies that are showing contrasting voids. But like, what is your whole take on which technologies are the best ones to use? And then, yeah, what do you think the purpose of these places are to be discovered at a later date?
I have a paper out for review right now on academia about how the passage lengths in the Great Pyramid passages encode the speed of light numbers in kilometers per second. So 299,792,458, kilometers per second. That all those measures, 97 or 29, 97, 92, I say are in the Great Pyramid and in meters. So two unusual things, that the speed of light, which is obviously, a 20th century discovery, I'm saying is in the Great Pyramid, and then it's in meters, which supposedly a modern, measurement discovered by or invented by the French in the French Revolution, in the Enlightenment. And so it's controversial to begin with in a paper like that. But in that paper, it's a long paper because I really vetted all the measurements. I tried to be as exact as I could in showing what I was showing, because I really do think the speed of light is encoded in the Great Pyramid in meters. So I'm an oddball twice, the speed of light's there and it's in meters, but it's not in exact meters. Every one of the meter measurements that I show is rounded. It's rounded to the nearest meter. And so in the paper, I suggest that what they're saying to us is, yes, we knew the speed of light, and yes, we knew the meter, but these are not the most important thing. So we're just going to allow it to be rounded to show you that we knew it. And so the question you're asking me about what kind of tools to, tool up with it, I think that one of the things that I found in that study, and I can give you the link so you can put it in the podcast so anybody that wants to look at that paper can, is that it said to me that the symbolic religious teachings, if you want to call it that are in those passages, because the passages in the Great Pyramid are not for any functionality. The Grand Gallery doesn't serve a function for being this beautiful thing. The King's Chamber, the relieving chambers, it doesn't relieve weight. There's no architectural reason for any of those passages. Architecturally, you just want solid stone. That's all you need for a pyramid, solid stone. So what is the meaning of those passages? And in my paper, I talk about from the Book of the Dead what the ancient Egyptian names were for those passages. And they're very suggestive of there being a big revelation there about resurrection, about new life. And so if I'm right, that the reason that the meter revelation of the speed of light is rounded, it's because they're saying, yeah, we knew it, but we're not making it the most important thing. Yeah, you found it's there, but we're not trying to say, oh, we knew the speed of light. Oh, we knew meters long before. No, they're not showing off. It's just, and so in a sense, I think that we don't necessarily need new and better machinery to discover what's there. I think that it's probably in plain sight. My book about the Sphinx, the same thing. People talk about the Hall of Records, Edgar Cayce, they want to get at all these things. And I think in my book, I think I've discovered as many things as might be in a Hall of Records were actually discovered, which I don't think it will be, because Manu Safzadeh in his book, Under the Sphinx, the most recent major study of the Sphinx, shows that the ancient Coptic records said that it was breached and moved. So it's not there. And Edgar Cayce said it would be discovered by the year 2000. And of course, it hasn't been. So these anomalies that, Dr. Schock and others have found in the Sphinx, I don't think that's going to lead to anything, because if it's metal plates or something, they're going to be rusted. If it's papyrus, it's going to be because there's so much water down there, it's going to be ruined. So I'm saying that what's in plain sight in the Sphinx, in my book, The Song of the Sphinx, I think I uncovered some profound revelations, probably the kind of thing that would have been in the Hall of Records if there were actually a Hall of Records had been found. So it's not the physical Hall of Records we need, it's what would have been in there. We can probably find that some other ways than actually finding that Hall of Records. Because what is it? Is it going to be a formula? Is it going to be, what's it going to be? I think it can be revealed in other ways.
Yeah,
and so the same thing in the Great Pyramid. So it's the battle for interpreting the meaning of the Great Pyramid. And I think that that's what this study led me to believe, that it's not, another, because even if, so in this hunt for new chambers, okay, the SARS radar scans found 20 new chambers. Now, the Egyptian government is not talking about those because they commissioned the scan pyramids, a completely different technology, muon technology, a Japanese-French team. They contracted with them. They didn't contract with this Italian team, but they put out their paper about the 20 new chambers they found, chambers and passages, and nobody's talking about that, but they're probably there.
Mhm.
Now, it was my thought that those chambers that are there, according to the satellite radar that they're working with, it picks up vibrations, sort of like muons can be detected, and we can learn some things. So the radar bounces, picks up vibrations in the earth, and so the question would be, once we find these passages, we're going to have to put them in some interpretive framework, just like the one that was just found. It's the same shape as the Coffre burial room. It's got the angled
Slanted
ceiling.
roofs. Yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be helpful to use whatever tools we can use to find those other chambers. But once found, they're still going to have to be put in an interpretive framework, unless there's some kind of stash of records that's written or something like that, which I don't think there will be. That Robert has, I don't know if it was through vision or through a dream or whatever, but he believes that the throat chakra chamber, which could be the one that they discovered and haven't talked about yet, that there's a throne in it, a simple granite throne. I don't know if you saw that by vision or what.
Mm-hmm.
And he was kind of, almost, when he told me about it, just kind of saying, like big deal, it's not a gold throne, it's not. But I said, no, that's huge, because I don't know of any other, pyramid that has a throne, since they tend to be associated with burial rites and resurrection and stuff. It's not, a throne is like a symbol of earthly reigning, like a king sits there. But I did discover in the Lost Pyramid in Dashur that there did seem to be a throne there, and I was real excited about that. I haven't fully published and fully vetted all the measurements I took there, but on the Dashur field, there's what's called the Lost Pyramid that was only discovered in 2017, I believe, and then there was a Smithsonian video done about it with Dr. Chris Naughton, the Egyptologist, and they knew that they had an untouched, burial chamber, and they opened it up, they unsealed it, and there was nothing in it. And they're like, wow, what happened? I even asked Dr. Chris Naughton about it a couple of days ago. And, it's just a mystery as to how this thing could be, totally closed. And when they open it, there's nothing in it. Well, I'm thinking, but there's what I told Robert, which he thought wasn't that, big of a thing. There's a throne. There's a throne there. Inside that sarcophagus, there's what appears like a throne. It's debatable whether it's a throne, but it looks like a throne. I took a picture of myself sitting in it, and it looks like a man sitting on a throne.
Yeah,
So
you just posted it on Instagram, and it's pretty fascinating. If whoever's listening should check out, it's one of the recent posts that you made.
yeah. So I'm going to do more with that, because I want to do more of the measurements. But so in other words, that it might be something like that. It's just a small thing. Well, it's the throne that might be profound, as to what it means. So I think it's cool that modern technology is being used, and I think it's so cool that the Great Pyramid continues to yield. When it was dynamite technology that they used back in Howard Weiss's day, we found things. When they just did traditional, excavating like they do today, we can find things. And if we have these muon scans, I just think it's wonderful. The Great Pyramid, it's almost like, a hiding game, like the Great Pyramids. Because when Peter Lemessier wrote his book, The Great Pyramid Decoded, he almost talks about the Great Pyramid like it's alive, like it's a person. And so just think about that for a minute, because I first started in 1975. I drew a picture of the man inside the Great Pyramid. I thought I was the only one. Then we got the whole Vitruvian Man thing now, and other people have done this. But I've been working with that idea for a long time. I think that the passages indicate a man there. You've got the Queen's Chamber, it's the heart. You've got the Grand Gallery, that's the biceps. You've got the the horizontal chamber. You got the mouth, which is the oracle, the sarcophagus. The relieving chambers is the head. You got this whole idea of an anatomy there. So it is like there's this live person in there, and it's sort of like he's just dishing out information little by little. Okay, you got 21st century. Okay, fine, I'll let you find some stuff that way. It just keeps giving. It just seems like it doesn't stop.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
it's a living pyramid. It's a living puzzle. Yeah, and when the technology is available and it's ready, that unlocks the next level. And when we raise our technology and we raise our consciousness, more things are going to get revealed to us. And I think I heard a couple of years ago they did some LiDAR studies of the Giza Plateau and they found labyrinths underneath. What is your take on what's under the Giza pyramids and the plateau itself?
Okay, well, I don't want to have to say some of the things I'm going to say here, but
Yeah.
okay. So my friend Bill Brown, when I spoke at the fourth annual Global Pyramid Summit at the Pyramid House that's in Illinois, I was the first speaker, and Dr. Bill Brown was the keynote speaker. Dr. Bill Brown has a house in Giza. He's friends with the locals there. He's a well-known esoteric researcher. He's a scientist. He's done a lot of his own personal LiDAR on the Giza Plateau. And he says that there is an Atlantean structure at the point where, okay, you're at the Great Pyramid now. You're at the mortuary temple on its east side. Now you're going to walk down the causeway of the Khufu Pyramid toward the village of Nazat el Saman, because that's where it goes. When you get to the escarpment is where the Giza Plateau drops off like a cliff to the village below. It's unbelievable when you see it.
It's pretty wild.
How
Yeah.
deep that drop is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you look at all the the Mark Lehner, Dr. Hawass books about the causeway, when the causeway gets to that point, the escarpment, then dog legs out into the village of Nazat el Saman. And they say that the Valley Temple was out there somewhere, because they did find some black basalt when they were doing some sewer work on Mansour Boulevard. And so that led them to believe it had to be out there. So there was reasons why they said that. But what Dr. Brown says is where that causeway hits the escarpment, that's where it is. You don't take this dog leg. And when you stand, and the next time anybody listen to this goes to the Great Pyramid, walk down that causeway and look out over the village of Nazat el Saman, the poor village that's there, and try and picture, if you were the engineer, how you would make a causeway go there. I mean, it would be a huge challenge for any civil engineer today. So anyways, Dr. Brown says that, and Dr. Brown was trying to get the concession to do the excavation there. And he actually was in line to do it. Dr. Waziri told Dr. Brown that he was ahead of Dr. Mark Lehner. And so Dr. Brown had a meeting scheduled in Egypt with Dr. Waziri. And, he knew he was going to need some money, because to get a concession, if Harvard, gets a pyramid so their kids can come and study, do field work there, they pay a certain amount of money for that, and the Egyptian government grants it to them. So I'm not going to say the amount of money that Dr. Waziri wanted, but he just didn't have that much. He had some money from people that wanted film rights, and he had a couple $100,000. But, a couple of people we tried to enlist to help us out just didn't do it. And so he didn't get that concession. And the thing that excited me was he could have hired me then, because once you get the concession, usually it's someone that like him, usually it's an academic institution. But sometimes, like Boston Museum of Fine Arts will get a concession. It's got to be usually a major academic type body. But Dr. Brown is he's an engineer. So if he would have got that concession, he could have hired me, and I could have actually been a part in that excavation. But since he didn't get it, I heard that Dr. Mark Lehner is interested in that now. So you'd want somebody like Dr. Brown doing the excavating, because he's going to bring different set of eyes than, because he's not a PhD Egyptologist. His advanced degrees is more in electrical engineering, I think. So that was a sad story that we didn't get that excavation, because he says it's right. It's because they did the Egyptian government went in and did urban renewal. They did wipe out a bunch of the homes of those poor people that live right along the escarpment to ultimately build 5-star hotels, but also to get the archaeology out of there. And that was policed, and no one could go in there. And it was, and so, a lot of the tearing down's been done. And Dr. Brown says it's just below there. It wouldn't take a lot of excavating to get to it. And one of the reasons he knows this is there is not only from the LiDAR, the personal LiDAR that he has, but because he's been a friend of those people. those people don't talk to antiquities, the poor people live there, because I'll tell you, and I've been in their homes, almost every home next to the Great Pyramid, you go into their house, they take off the rug that's in the living room, and there's an excavation there that goes in toward Giza. It's because some poor families have gotten rich by selling things they found on the black market, and all poor families know it. And so, they just follow. It's like there's gold in California, we're going to go. And so almost all poor families end up doing digging. And so you don't want to be talking with antiquities, because that's against the law. Anything that you find has to be given to antiquities, but instead they're selling it on the black market because some people made a lot of money doing that. So Dr. Brown says that there are eyewitness accounts, not just that his LiDAR says something there, but there are eyewitness accounts from these residents that have now been moved out that is there. So keep your eyes open on whoever is given the excavation for where the causeway meets the escarpment. And if you go to Giza yourself, go look at that. Just walk down there and look at that area.
Wow.
What
kind of structure do they say it is? Oh, you said it's
yeah,
Atlantean, but what?
I can send you a picture. I think that Dr. Brown has done a likeness of what he's seen. Some people think was Khufu. Some other people that think it's there, they don't attribute it to Atlantis. They attribute it to some Khufu buildings. So whether it's Atlantis or Khufu, there's this double witness that it's there, the LiDAR and local witnesses. So
Wow.
it's going to be very interesting to see if, what they come up with there.
That's wild. And we were on the Giza Plateau right at the Sphinx, and it was the first time I got a chance to chat with you. I asked you a question. I was like, "Do you think there's any water underneath the pyramids?" And you said that you know of people that have actually scuba dived underneath the pyramids.
Yeah, underneath the Sphinx.
Under the Sphinx, okay.
I do think there probably is a connection of water between very deep under the Great Pyramid, because almost, many pyramids have, Chichen Itza is famous for that, being built on a cenote, but water being associated with pyramids is a common thing around the world. And I do think deep down, because the water table, I think, has really gone down at Giza. I think it was much higher in the past. And that could be one of the reasons that, why isn't it the Great Pyramid a power pump now? Why isn't it this? Well, things have changed. That's why I don't look at the physical things, whether it's a Tesla or a Chris Dunn power plant, because it's not now. The Great Pyramid is not operating. It does have amazing sound characteristics in it still up in the upper chambers, but I still say that the important revelation of the pyramid is the symbolic, the prophetic, that's its real treasure, because it's not acting as a Tesla power plant now. So to the extent that it was at one time, it's not now. Things have changed. And so I think the water table has changed, but I do think probably deep down there is one, but certainly under the just do any reading about the Sphinx, there's been tremendous, amounts of water underneath the Sphinx. And it was Dr. Mark Lehner that told a friend of mine that he used to scuba dive, under the Sphinx, that there's, there's, and a lady I know that lives right near the pyramids, has all her life, she says that, she's been swimming under there, because if you're friends with the guards and stuff, you probably could. So yeah, but I don't necessarily think that's a sign that there was, I just think that that's the nature of the, the hydraulics, the water table and stuff, that the Sphinx, because it's low. If you look at the plateau, it's a long hike to go from the Sphinx up to the Great Pyramid. That's a tremendous, level elevation.
Change.
I think there was a tremendous amount of water that flowed down the plateau. As a matter of fact, a lot of evidence that you can explain that weathering around the Sphinx just through the tremendous waterfall that came down back when in the early dynasties, when there wasn't much greater rainfall in that area.
Amazing. And I know you've been working on a lot of discoveries that you've been finding. I want to get a little bit deeper into that. And you mentioned that you'd like to share your screen. So I'd love to bring you on if you're cool with that right now.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'll share this one thing here.
Okay.
So geometry, geo, earth, and metry, measure. Okay. Here is this is a top view of Stonehenge with the Great Pyramid superimposed on it and some other lines. Okay. So there's the heel stone line and the line to straight north, and it makes the exact angle of the Great Pyramid, 51.85, the slope angle of the Great Pyramid. Okay, there's the Aubrey hole circle in gold there. There's the Great Pyramids superimposed over that. And there's basically the apothem, if we look at that as the Great Pyramid. And then this red circle touches all three vertices of the pyramid, okay? So basically in the upper right-hand corner there now, we've got the Philosopher's Stone. I mean, these are symbols that the Philosopher's Stone appears different ways. Of course, the Philosopher's Stone is anciently, it's a power that sages had. It could have been an actual stone, but also the picture of the Philosopher's Stone is considered the Philosopher's Stone too. So this is a picture. So, and actually I'm calling that the Great Pyramid. It has the slope angle of the Great Pyramid, but it's an equilateral triangle. So when you put that equilateral triangle in, using the diameter of the Aubrey circle, the outside circle, and the apothemus, that blue line we just showed, the length of each side is 330 feet. Okay, so on the actual Earth, that equilateral triangle has a side of 330 feet. Okay, which means that the apothem, the blue line, will be is 105, and the orange circle is 330 megalithic yards. So look at that. Megalithic yards is a different measurement. It's 2.72 feet. Alexander Thom is the one that discovered the megalithic yard. He deduced it from measurements all over Europe from ancient megalithic sites. So it's a widely recognized unit, the megalithic yard. So look, you've got 330 feet in the equilateral triangle, but 330 megalithic yards in that orange circle. Okay. So the red circle, which goes around the equilateral triangle, is 440. So look at this, 440, that's the side of the Great Pyramid. And 105, that's the Sarsen circle. That's the diameter of the Sarsen circle. So the Sarsen circle at Stonehenge is 105. So you got the 440 from the Great Pyramid, you got the 105 from Stonehenge, you got the Great Pyramid slope angle, 51.85 degrees. Then if you take the diameter of the red circle, that's 140. And so that's the length of the Sphinx, 140 royal cubits. And then if you take from the bottom of the equilateral triangle, that gray arrow I just put there, down to the red circle, that's 35. And it's 35 royal cubits is the width of the Sphinx. So look what you have here. You've got this Philosopher's Stone that shows dimensions that are at Stonehenge. It shows dimensions of the Great Pyramid, and it shows the through the apothem there, it shows the width of the Sarsen circle at Stonehenge. And so, and also in my book, The Song of the Sphinx, I show that Philosopher's Stone is on the chest of the Sphinx, the keystone. There's this major jutting out on the chest of the Sphinx, which isn't part of the anatomy of a pharaoh. It's not part of the anatomy of a lion, and yet it's right there in plain sight. And it basically is the Philosopher's Stone. And so you got the Great Pyramid, Stonehenge, and the Great Sphinx, and their measurements all encoded in this little symbol, the Philosopher's Stone.
That's wild.
Just incredible. Yeah. So
Wow.
I just wanted to show that and then another thing I could show, I guess, real quick here. Let's see. Here's one of my discoveries, the Holy Shaft. We've got a star around it there. Okay. What's so big about this Holy Shaft? It's just another shaft like so many on the Giza Plateau. Well, it's 504 ancient cubits, which is 888 feet to the southeast corner of the Khufu Pyramid, the Great Pyramid. And that makes a circle, and it touches the Great Pyramid. It goes through the anomaly on the Sphinx. It goes through the center of Kenkawes, the first female ruler in the world, and it goes through the Khafre Pyramid. So the four major monuments that are closest to the Holy Shaft, it's an exact circle. So it's this virtual circle. It's 504 ancient cubits in its radius, which means its circumference is 3,168 ancient cubits. Okay, Now let's look at Stonehenge. So if you take the Aubrey circle there, it's 316.8 feet. So 3168, 3168. Okay, then take the circle that's the horseshoe there, and it's 50.4 feet. So you got 504, 504. So you've got these two major stone monuments, the Great Pyramid and Stonehenge, that have these similarity of numbers. So if you square that circle, it's going to be again 3168. And then if you square that, it's going to also be 316.8. So you get these same numbers. If you take the perimeter of the Great Pyramid, an inch, and it's 31,680 inches. There's 18 inches in the cubits. So you take the 440 times 4 and then multiply that by 18, you get 31,006. So again, 3168. Okay, so there's a top view of the Great Pyramid. So there's a picture now of just the top of the Great Pyramid that exists now. And so I calculated that top, and it's 504 inches across there. So it's the same number as the radius of that holy circle. And so the circumference is 1584 inches, which if you take the Earth and you take the square around the Earth, it's 31,680 miles. Half that is 1584, the same as you get in the top of the Great Pyramid there. And so the Great Pyramid channels planet Earth in Egyptian inches in its base and modern inches in its top. Okay, so that was a discovery of mine, the 504 that's at the top there. But the main idea here is this virtual circle that I discovered on the Giza Plateau does the same thing that two major stone monuments do. A lot of people go to Stonehenge to look at it. A lot of people go to the Great Pyramid, but nobody goes to this virtual circle I found. It's centered on this humble shaft, but it shows the same revelations as the Great Pyramid and as Stonehenge, saying we knew the dimensions of the Earth. Okay.
That's wild.
So,
yeah. All this great grand architecture embedded in these ancient sites. That's why the Masonic.
So I do think, that's one of my greatest discoveries, finding that the holy shaft and the holy circle, because it as it started to come together, I thought, holy cow, it's virtual. So you've got the revelations that are in the big stone monuments are there also virtually, showing we knew the dimensions of the planet long before they were supposedly discovered by the Greeks.
Wow. And we just scratched the surface of some of your discoveries. I mean, you gave some lengthy talks on all of this stuff, between the dimensions of the length between the moon, the sun, all of this stuff. They knew the dimensions of all of it. So I would highly suggest people check out your work on that. I'm sure you have that on YouTube and some of your publications.
Go to my website, greatpyramid.org, because I got top level domain names. I have greatpyramid.org, greatpyramid.us, great-pyramid.com, not because I bought them. I was in the internet in its infancy, and I was doing stuff with the Great Pyramid when the internet was first founded. So that's why I have greatpyramid.org. So if you go out there, Great Pyramid, and as a matter of fact, my handle on YouTube is at the Great Pyramid. They've got handles now for channels. So the @ at the Great Pyramid, that's my YouTube handle. So if you go to my website, greatpyramid.org, there's a tab up at the top that says Discoveries. So if you go there and click on that, you'll see a whole lot of things that I've discovered of the type that Ananda and I have just been talking about.
Amazing. Yeah, you can spend days on there. So Larry, how has all of this understanding and these discoveries that you've made in your research on it, how has it impacted your understanding of life and your spiritual nature?
Well, our friend Robert Grant just had his birthday, 5/16, May 16th. And so I sent him a private communication on WhatsApp and said, 5/16 was the year that the temple was rebuilt, the Hebrew temple. And it had been, Solomon's temple was one of the wonders of the world. The Masons used the Great Pyramid and Solomon's temple as like the two major, architectural edifices that are to be. And so the glory of Solomon's temple was destroyed, but then it was rebuilt in 5/16. And so I said, Robert, you are basically through the science that you've uncovered, the connection of color, number, 24, 528, 432, the connections you're seeing, you are really the Solomon's temple, the beauty that was collapsed. Well, Enoch, the ancient world where there was a connection between God and man, there heaven heaven and earth. There was this living connection between science and the earth we live on, not just a bunch of, disconnected, meters and things, but an integral science that you are really kind of bringing that back to view. And so I think that's one thing that studying this has led me to see, that the ancient golden age, whether you say it was Atlantis or the world of Enoch before the flood, it was a golden age in that, it says in the Bible that Enoch walked with God and was taken. And so if you believe that, it's like Enoch never died. He was this advanced polymath human being. He had this tremendous knowledge. There's a lot of things written about him, not in the books of Enoch. As I told Robert, I don't think a lot of stuff that's in the book of Enoch goes back to Enoch. I think a little of it does, but you'd have to be a genius to know what parts were added and what parts were ancient. But a lot of ancient books do talk about his life, and he was supposedly a sort of like a philosopher king. He wasn't just a polymath. He ruled a big, just like Robert is a very fantastic, entrepreneur and can handle the world of, the numbers and the physical world. He's also, got this esoteric mind. I think Enoch was the same way. The studies say he was a ruler in the area. He was respected that way. He could make judgments that were fair, but he also was a polymath. And so I think he was connected with God. In other words, part of his knowledge, because we've disconnected our science from God. It's like it's by its nature, it has to be secular. But the ancient saying was, theology is the queen of the sciences. If God is real or whatever that means, then it's real to study it. But since we exclude it, it's not. So I think that one of the things that the beauty I've seen in the sacred geometry, all the stuff I just showed, between the connections of what's on the Giza Plateau and the earth and the moon and things, that there is the basis for a golden age, to believe that there can be a greater connection between heaven and earth and your spirit, the earth you live on, the fellow human beings around you. There's a different way to look at things than our current scientific paradigm does. So that's probably the main thing.
Beautiful. And why did you think you came here to Earth as Larry Pahl? And what did you want to experience?
Well, I really don't like the modern idea that you can be whatever you want. I like the idea that you should discover who you were meant to be. Because, if you just be whoever you want, okay, I want to be a cowboy, I want to be this, and then you go do it, but that might not be what you're best suited for. So to really learn yourself, I used to teach at the high school and college level, have a lot of contact with students, and it takes a long time for kids to get in touch with themselves. When I taught high school seniors, they're a lot more mature than freshmen, but they're getting ready to go to college, live away from mom and dad, and they still weren't really in touch with themselves because they've been so scripted in their high school classes and stuff. It takes a lot of discipline to learn who you are, to learn what you're good at, to learn what your talent sets are, what are your giftings and how they go. And so really, I loved teaching when I was in it. I loved high school teaching. I loved college teaching. And I thought I'd miss it so much when I left that world. But what I'm doing now in terms of, and use like my talents, I think I'm coming into the fullness of who I was meant to be. And so it's not something I constructed, like I decided I want to be this, but that's certainly involved though. It's my conscious free choices, but I'm led by an honest sense of calling, like Alpha and Omega, show me what to do, help me, guide me, asking for guidance and believing it can come instead of me forcing on the earth and its laws what I want, me learning to fit in with what's here. And so that's what I want. And I think that's what I've got.
Amazing. You're a national treasure, Larry. It's just one of the examples or the lessons I learned from you is like pursuing your passions, because you were the most energetic person I've seen on that trip. Like you were up every morning, early to rise, all ready to go. And like, some of us in our 20s, 30s, 40s even, we're like struggling to get out of bed and we're like, we're tired, we got a coffee in our hand, but you were like ready to rock. So it's just, I love seeing people who are so passionate about what they do in life. And this is your purpose. You were here because you wanted to experience this. And the work that you're doing is really changing a lot of the perspectives humanity has on these ancient sites. So we need people like you who are doing independent research and not just listening to the academics and what the official story is, because we never progress in humanity without people who question. And I really am so honored to be friends with you and to learn from you, because that's what's needed. My final question for you is, what do you think God is?
I think I have a fairly traditional view there, and that I do believe that there's a great gap between the creator and the creation, and that 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 therefore, you know, it's a gap that requires worship. And I think that I often refer to God as the Alpha and Omega, because like Robert, I discovered an Alpha and Omega in the Great Pyramid. And, Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. I think that, like the microphone I'm talking into is an incredible invention. And the screen I'm looking at you with, it's an incredible invention. Those were invented by human beings that mastered the elements, and made resistors and diodes, and were able to pixelate, material. And I think that, if God created giraffes and elephants and an ozonosphere that works, and the motions of the heavens the way they are, then that's worth, that's worth worshiping. And so that's why, in a sense, I said, I want to lay my life out to say, please guide me. There's something greater than me. There's something greater than me. When I make a discovery, Robert and I have talked about this, because obviously Robert has made so many discoveries, but he and I have talked about this together. And, we both recognize the discoveries, even though it's like my discovery, it's like our name's not on it. You discover something, that means you discovered part of the way the universe works. You didn't make it work that way. You just discovered it. And so, even by its very name, that a discovery is a recognition there's something greater than you out there. And so it's fun to discover things, but it's just a reminder that there's a great power, a great intellect. And it's not just a great intellect, because in Robert's latest find, the connection of the 528 and the 432 harmonic scale, and the way that Euler and pi, make this grand chromatic scale of color and music. I quoted to Robert in one of his Instagram posts, a quote from the prophet Zephaniah, where it says, "The Lord will delight over you with singing." So singing, it's not just a very smart God. Hey, look, I can make a giraffe. Hey, look, I can do the speed of light. But singing, harmonics, it's like, this is a wonderful person. This is a, and so I guess I feel more connected to the universe through believing that there's a God greater than I am, and that it's just wonderful to be involved in this, beautiful machine, whatever he's created.
Beautiful. Larry, thank you so much for coming on, brother. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks, Anand. I enjoyed being this, and let's talk again. So I want to invite you to come on my Ancient Mysteries of Egypt tour, October 17th through 26th of this year. You'll have an opportunity to have a private entrance into the Great Pyramid, and you'll see the other major monuments and temples. It's a good group of people we got coming. So you can get more information about my Ancient Mysteries of Egypt tour, October 17th through 26th, by going to greatpyramid.org, our website, and all the details, the costs, and everything will be there. Come with me to Egypt, October 17th through 26th. Thanks.
Make it happen.